state taxes. Oh, good. I guess we're being, yeah. So I just wanted to indicate to folks that, you know, my mother always used to say the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is that we, despite all of the consequences of COVID, which have been terrible as far as public health and economic consequences, nonetheless, we have a $6 billion surplus, and I believe that it will rise. So it gives us an opportunity in Maryland to do something to really fortify our long-term future. So the Maryland tax season started on January 24th. I want to remind everyone, the Comptroller's Office, we're completely wide open and ready to help any taxpayers. We obviously are doing for the third year something unique in the country. Under my direction, we have extended the 2022 Maryland income tax filing and payment deadline. This is for state taxes. We've extended it by 3 months to July 15th. Extending the state deadline an extra 3 months means Marylanders who are struggling, and particularly small businesses that are struggling, because it's that kind of end of winter situation, they're able to prioritize their money. It's their money that's in their pocket. They don't have to fill out a grant application to get it. It's not relief money from the state or from the federal government. It is their money that they owe to the state of Maryland. I give them an extension so they have an interest-free, penalty-free, application-free loan from the state of Maryland, totaling almost $2 billion, that they have to, generally for small businesses, get from the end of winter into the summer season. So that is in effect that the date is now Friday, July 15th, when your taxes are due. The state taxes. Now, your federal taxes, do not get in trouble with that, because they're still going to be due April 15th or April 18th, I believe it is, this because of a holiday. So pay your federal taxes, but we're giving you an interest-free loan, if you, a penalty-free loan for 3 months if you need it. And I'm talking about 600,000 Maryland taxpayers each year who take advantage of this. And I continue to be very proud of the national reputation we have as one of the most effective and efficient and compassionate comptrollers' offices in the United States. Even in the face of COVID, which has been so dramatically destructive of the state's health and particularly the low-wage earners economy. Despite that, our agency has always dealt with every taxpayer and resident in the state of Maryland with respect, responsiveness, and getting them a result. So Marylanders can call our taxpayer service hotline, 1-800-MD-TAXES, and you're going to get a live, friendly, professional representative who will be able to answer your tax questions, process payments, and perform other services. Why do I know that? I called the number myself today just to check. Smart, talented person answers the phone. Not immediately, because COVID has just discombobulated things, but within a couple of minutes, someone will get on the phone. We have taxpayer service employees in our 12 regional branch offices across the state, including Prince George's County, which is the only county to have 2 of our satellite offices, one in Upper Marlboro, one in Greenbelt. They're already able, more than happy, to provide a wide range of services. And that includes preparing and submitting your Maryland state tax return for you, free of charge. Guaranteed to be accurate, because we're filling it out. But you can schedule a visit. I think we require virtual appointments, and you have to, in order to get an in-person meeting, you have to schedule it over the website. MarylandTaxes.gov is the site. So we have this nearly $6 billion in unexpected revenue. Most of this money is tax revenue collected as a direct result of the more than $70 billion in federal cash that came flowing into the state like out of a fire hydrant over the last 16 months. But it also is attributed to this delay for 3 months of the state tax payment date. we've done this now. This is the third year, so it's pretty well documented that that had a significant impact in allowing small businesses to surge in their tax revenues. I've told the legislature and the governor as nicely as I can that they should treat the $6 billion as a one-time only windfall opportunity, and they shouldn't just plug it into the operating budget, because that will put pressure on future state budgets to raise taxes. I think they should take if I were in charge, this is how I would allocate the $6 billion. I'd take $1 billion of it and I would put it into what I call $2,000 survival checks and send it to 437,000 Maryland families of low wage earners with children who we know are financially annihilated. They have no job, they have no income, they have no money for food or medicine or rent. And they have been totally disproportionately hammered by the health effects and by the economic consequences. We should send them immediately, and I could put it in their bank accounts within 24 hours, a $2,000 survival check. That would be approximately $1 billion. We should, last year I tried to do this, I advocated this, the legislature ended up with a $500 check that went to people on earned income tax credit. That was better than nothing, but what we need is a $2,000 check right now to help these people get through. So we must provide support for the childcare industry. This is 8,000 for-profit small businesses in the state of Maryland, largely owned by minorities and women. And they perform a crucial role for our economy because they take care of children for working families. And they have not been properly supported by the federal or the state government with the right kind of matching up of state relief and federal relief. So a portion of the surplus of $6 billion should be put aside to reconstruct our whole relationship with our 8,000. Frankly, we've lost 1,000 of them who closed permanently because of inability to get relief money. So we need to rebuild the child care structure in our country. That I think we should allocate $500 million for. Third, we should allocate $500 million for small businesses that we need to tide over. We've lost about 30,000 businesses over the last 2 years due to COVID. We need to realize that these small businesses are the beating heart of our state's economy. And I would advocate that we spend $500 million tiding those over that can survive if they get a small check from the government. Finally, we then have $4 billion left. I think $2 billion should be put in the rainy day fund so that we're financially prepared for the next economic crisis. And we simply need to put a third of that $6 billion, $2 billion into our rainy day fund, which essentially is a piggy bank for the state of Maryland. And we're not exactly sure of how everything's going to sort out economically. The remaining $2 billion should be spent on one-time only, high growth, high priority infrastructure projects. And specifically in Prince George's, we need, I have a goal. I would like to see the state move totally into renewable energy, high-speed internet connectivity for all Marylanders. That's the type of infrastructure project that would benefit all of us. And but it also could be transportation projects or other projects that you all might bring up this evening. So let me just stop there and say that the state has strong economic bones. I, as your comptroller, have always prioritized customer service. I started out my career 35 years ago in Tacoma Park, Maryland, where I've lived for now 41 years. But I started out as the head of my Long Branch Sligo Civic Association, just like everybody on the call tonight. I was just a person living on Garland Ave with my young family. But I got the spark for public service, obviously, in local politics by my civic association. I love that civic association. I think I was elected president simply because I was the only one not present when they were selecting the president. But I enjoyed it a lot, and I then ran for delegate, spent 20 years in the Maryland legislature on the Appropriations Committee, and then the last 16 years as your comptroller. And I'm delighted to be with everyone here, and let me know if, well, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. St. Cyr, and you can moderate any questions that folks have.
Sure. Thank you for that introduction. We've got a couple of questions that have been entered into the chat. I think if someone has a question, I'll ask that you either raise your hand, use the icon to raise your hand, and we'll try to get to you, or put your question in the chat and we'll get to it that way. There's already been at least one question put in the chat, and I think that was from Tanya Sweat. So Tanya, will you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Good evening, Comptroller Franchot. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, good to see you.
Thank you. I, like many Prince Georgians, have a long list of questions for anybody running for governor at this point. But the first question I put in the chat actually relates to your position right now as comptroller. Do you know off the top of your head or in your notes how much assistance the county has been provided to help small businesses and families survive the pandemic, whether it be housing assistance, economic income disaster assistance of some type? Do you have any idea how much we've received from the federal government or the state government?
Well, what I do know is that it's about half of what you should have received. Why do I say that? We are doing a top to bottom review of all $70 billion in federal and state relief funds. And the first thing we discovered was that Prince George's County got $26 million in assistance for small businesses. Montgomery County, with the same number of small businesses approximately, and the same population approximately, got twice that. Why was that, we asked? Well, it turns out the state did something that was not, I guess it's understandable under pressure. They decided to give out the limited number of small business survival checks to first come, first serve. So Montgomery County has all these relationships with lawyers and lobbyists and grant appliers. Prince George's didn't. So we have this inequity. And, you know, it's deplorable. It's very unfortunate. And we hope the legislature will try to correct it using our report. But it surprised us when we investigated what was the reason for the discrepancy. The reason for the discrepancy back in the day may have looked a little reasonable because everybody was just beside themselves. But in an effort to get the money out the door quickly, they made a big mistake, which is first come, first serve. And when you do that, counties like my home county, Montgomery County, have an advantage over Prince George's. And it was glaringly made obvious. So good question, needs to be remedied. Thank you. And I'm sure it will be a lesson learned and a best practice in the future, because the agencies that come and testify and said, yeah, this didn't work right, had the wrong overall result. Well-intentioned, wishful thinking, bad implementation. Thank you. Good question. And could I just take a minute and give everybody my personal cell phone number? I do this with groups around the state. Nobody seems to take advantage of it. But it's important because when I was a civic association president, I didn't even know how to get hold of my local city council person, much less a statewide elected official. So my personal cell phone is 301 area code 332-1961. And if you're in my contact list, I'll answer the phone. If not, you may want to text or voicemail me. Thank you for that opportunity. Thanks for that question, because that's not right, what I just described. And I think that the legislature will make some efforts to repair that disparity. Thank
Is it
you.
1961 or 1461?
332-1961.
Okay, the chat will be the number. Someone put the number in the chat. It'll be corrected.
1961. That's a good year. Yeah, and I give that not as a gimmick or anything. I give it, I've got it right here in my pocket. So don't call me right now, because then it'll start ringing and I'll get distracted. But I want to be somebody who's a statewide official who has a big piece of my heart belongs to Prince George's. I lived in Prince George's County from 1980 to 1986. And until Tacoma Park was then, I was in the Prince George's side of Tacoma Park. Then it got unified thanks to B. Tigner and Mike Miller and others who allowed that referendum to go forward. So, I've lived in Tacoma Park for 41 years, but for 6 years, it was Prince George's. Proud of it too.
We have a question from Will Knuckles that was put in the chat. I'll ask Will to unmute himself. And after this, there's a couple of questions that I think we want to pose to you regarding Indian Head Highway safety and
Sure.
210 safety. Go ahead, Will.
Good evening. So I'm in Oxon Hill, and one of the features that we've gotten that's a new aspect of Prince George's County in the past decade is we have a large gambling casino. And when state gambling was expanded, one of the concepts was that there was going to be monies that would come off that revenue stream that would address local impacts to gaming. That was sort of like the state on the whole would theoretically benefit from the revenues coming in, but there would be local impacts that would be disproportionate, and that some of that money would be sort of, carved off and go to those localities to address some of those impacts. I wondered what your opinion was in terms of whether you think that's working, both in terms of the nitty gritty stuff. Like, I think, money gets used locally for very, very local issues. There's other money that's sort of gets pulled aside for education funding. And then there's the larger revenue stream that just goes into the general fund. Do you think that's working out as originally envisioned? And if not, what could be done now with your current role, or what could be done differently if you think something's different, if you had the governorship?
Well, first of all, I'm not a big fan of the state using gambling tax revenue for its public purposes, because gambling, as you know, has got tremendous negative social impact. And I don't mean to sound like a goody two shoes or something. I'm just saying there is a tremendous downside to gambling, including the recent expansion into sports gambling. So I kind of led the fight, claiming that slots for tots back in the day when they first got authorized, we lost the referendum. I was one of the lead advocates saying this is a fairy tale that we're being told. This is not a good way. It's an uneven source of revenue, first of all. And second of all, it's one that's got enormous social impact. And I was proven right on that. We had to finally, I think last year, they finally got some kind of lockbox created that actually began to move the slot revenues into education funds. Previous to that, these gambling revenues go into education or go into local payments, but they're backed out the other side from the general fund. So it's a kind of it's not an addition, it's just a reshuffling. So I have not seen the data on the local impact that National Harbor, and obviously that is a done deal and moving forward. So I would make sure that what can be done for the local communities and what was promised, in fact, is flowing to them. I'm always tremendously skeptical that it's a good deal. And I don't mean to be pessimistic about the state of Maryland's decision to do that. They made it. I lost. I think the referendum was 52-48. And well, we came close, but we didn't succeed. So essentially, I'm now someone who is a skeptical overseer of that sector of our economy. And I don't, everybody here may be wildly enthusiastic about it. I appreciate some of what's happened at National Harbor, but I've always and will always be somewhat skeptical of the promises made. And so as governor, I would be all over making sure what promises were made should be followed through. I haven't thought about that for a long time, but yeah, I do remember calling slots for tots a fairy tale, economic fairy tale. And I think I was proven right on it, but that's, politics, you have to readjust if the people are going to vote for something. And so hopefully we can do the best we can. This sports gambling is something that is, I just can't tell you how addictive gambling is for certain vulnerable members of our society. It is just worse than drugs, worse than alcohol, worse than any addiction out there. That's how powerful the gambling addiction is. And so I would urge everybody to, since we have it in the state, make sure you keep your eyes open and if you can, help people who may be vulnerable. Thank you. Good question.
We
I haven't thought about
also-
gambling for a while. Yeah, okay. But I guess I'm here with ground zero on gambling. So you guys are, feel free to communicate with me if you think something needs to be paid attention to and payments are not being made.
We have a couple of questions that have been entered in the chat about another project down this way that is being done by Pepco. It's a lithium battery storage project that was mandated by the General Assembly, and there are many community concerns about it. A question was put in by Ms. Mack and also Patricia Monroe, the president of the Southlawn Citizens Association. Why don't we get Ms. Mack's question in first, and then Ms. Monroe would like to speak with you offline about it. But Ms. Mack, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, this is Carmen Mack. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining in on this session. I am a resident of Oxon Hill, and I'm very concerned about the possibility that Pepco is going to store lithium batteries in our community. And I read that Pepco had several alternative sites, two of which were in the National Harbor area. And I can't understand why they chose a residential area with schools, daycare, and individual homes to place this lithium battery storage unit when they could have put it at a parking lot near MGM at National Harbor. I don't understand that, and I'm worried about the impact of this in our community for our health, for our environment. What can you do, or what can we do to have this reconsidered?
So I take it the concern is focused right now mostly on the what could be a bad location.
Yes.
And I'm happy to help you guys or facilitate, if you haven't, meet directly with Pepco and the Public Service Commission and say, look, any entity like this that has some question marks needs to be carefully cited. And to the extent there can be some flexibility, I would be happy to help you negotiate that directly.
Thank
So,
you. I
yeah.
appreciate that.
And I
Thank
don't,
you.
I'm not exactly sure on the, I believe tremendously in a renewable powered future for the state, and batteries and storage of solar and wind and other forms of electrical generation are super important, but they have to be, carefully sited and located so that I'm not sure what the error rate here is for lithium, this kind of lithium storage. I assume Pepco will say that they have resolved some of the issues that maybe Tesla and others have failed to so far as far as safety of batteries. But we need batteries for the future. We're going to need a lot of them. And we need to make sure that wherever they're sited are not too close to residential areas because of, I think, aesthetics also, in addition to safety. So yeah, I'm happy to set up a meeting and you all can sit down and get back to me as to how the discussions went. I'm happy to have Joanne. If I have Joanne Blocker, who just got out of the military recently and is my representative for the government side for Prince George's County. Joanne, if you could just make sure you post your contact information and anyone who's interested in, I take it this is the, what is it called? The Livingston Rd? The Livingston Rd Battery Energy Storage Project.
Yeah. Livingston Rd, yeah.
So we'll, if we can, we'll work with everybody to set up a meeting and at least we can get things out on the table.
Yeah, and
thank you.
Just as an FYI, we have been having regular meetings with Pepco. Many of those meetings are facilitated by our Council District 8 office. So,
oh, good, terrific. Well, I'll build on that, but I find that some of these entities that we get together to talk have a very difficult time sometimes saying no to the tax collector.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll add a little firepower to whatever you currently have as far as your discussions, and that's terrific. That you've already got your contacts, but maybe we can add something to it.
Sure, we appreciate that, and we'll put
thank you
and Jawan together to coordinate that additional assistance from your office. Let me turn to 210, which is another issue of concern for the residents in this area. You may or may not be aware of the many traffic fatalities on Route 210 and the excessive speeding that takes place on that road. Our community has raised concerns about that roadway for some time now, and we did get the General Assembly to make an exception to state law that allows for placing 3 speed cameras on that road, but it's not enough. The speeding still continues with speeds in excess of, I think the highest has been around 161 miles an hour on that 50 or 55 mile per hour roadway. We have gone back, we as a community have gone back to the General Assembly this year to try to get the fines increased from the current $40 fine to something much higher. And I'll let either Reverend Screen or Ron Weiss, if one of you want to unmute yourselves and address your question to the comptroller.
Hello, this is Reverend Dr. Robert Screen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I want to thank you, first of all, for allowing this issue to come forth on this in this discussion period. And Mr. Franchot, it's good to meet you. And I thank you for allowing us to be able to come before you on this very taxing issue for the community here in the 210 jurisdictional area. As far as the fines are concerned, what has been brought forth in terms of increasing the fines, well, there's a little bit more complexity to that issue. We actually tried last year in 2021 during the 2020, I guess, preliminary period to have the fines increased from a fixed rate of $40 to have something in semblance to fines that would reflect what a police cruiser would give an individual for an infraction if they pulled them over on the side. With that type of change, we would also still ingrain the 12-mile-per-hour buffer when it's associated with the speed cameras. So in other words, anything that would be 12 miles per hour over 55 miles per hour, you would not get anything below that. You would not get a ticket, but going from 68 on up, the fines would reflect something that would be in semblance to what a cruiser policeman would give you. That measure failed last year. Actually, it would have been in the 2021 session. This year, we tried to once again have someone to reintroduce it. We unfortunately were not able to get anyone to carry the ball to bring it to the General Assembly for voting. This is one of the high concerns that I have, and the groups that I represent, the 210 Traffic Safety Committee has, in terms of one of the measures to be a deterrent to the ongoing speeding crisis on any highway. Now, I can say without a doubt, since the 3 cameras have been introduced in July of 2019, at that time we had an average of a 30-day period, somewhere around between 5,000 and 6,000 infractions within that time period. The last time I was able to get fresh information back in 2021 on the average number of infractions within the 30-day period, they were somewhere down between 2,000 and 2,500. So there has been a measurable effect of the cameras having on slowing people down. Before we introduced the cameras back in 2017, we had 7 fatalities on this road. The last 3 years, with the exception of last year, if you count the Indian Head Highway going into near the Eastover area, we had 7 fatalities, but only 3 from the segment of road from the Beltway to the Charles County line going south. That's been the case for the last 3 years. There's been 3 infractions per year going 2021, 2020, and 2019. Problem is, though, we have an exorbitant number of people who are going well over 100 miles per hour. When we were getting accurate information on our data analysis from the vendors each month, I would say just on the average, we were getting between the 3 cameras about 40 plus people going over 100 miles per hour. We hear about the 161, which is an extravagant amount of speed, which it should be ringing in the ears of anyone that takes Indian Highway, because that's an instant fatality. But we do have quite a bit of people that are going well over 100 miles per hour recorded between the 3 cameras. So this is our dilemma. We need a more deterrent factor, and the increase in fines would be one measure of that. We understand, and anybody that understands anything about traffic enforcement knows there's no silver bullet to this problem. In other words, the speed cameras alone will not solve this problem, along with the increase in fines. But they are a measure of the safety effect that goes into the comprehensive package of road safety, from an enforcement point of view, from an overall perspective of getting many factors coming into the equation of enhancements to deter high rate speed. So I guess my question is, what is your position on the increase in cameras? What is your position on the increase of enforcement for traffic safety on Indian Head Highway, Route 210?
Well, the speeding on Indian Head Highway is well known, and it's not just folks that are in the immediate area. And I would be happy to work with you to try to bring it under control. I live, as I said, in Tacoma Park. It's very close to DC, and if I go on Military Road, every once in a while I would get $100 ticket. from the speed camera. To this day, I cannot find that speed camera. But to this day, I never go over the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I do believe in the deterrent effect. If I don't know whether the cameras are particularly visible or not, but I think the cameras, and not just a graduated fine, but a significant fine. If you, what is the speed limit posted?
That's 55 miles per hour
Yeah.
for most of the roadway, yes.
Yeah, well, you get $100 ticket, and trust me, you'll be either like me looking, where the heck was that camera? And you know, if they're not visible, I don't think the problem with visible cameras are that people will slow down for the camera and then they speed back up. So we have a new Secretary of Transportation, someone I served with in the legislature, and I see him every 2 weeks at the Board of Public Works. I'm happy to bring it up with him and also the head of the state police and say, look, there continues to be an ongoing problem with high-speed infractions. And I'm not exactly sure what can be done on top of what you already have done, but I'd be happy to weigh in. And I can't think of anything more important because, look, I'm driven around the state. I'm a statewide official, so I get driven by a trooper all over the place. Guess what? The traffic is incomprehensibly reckless. I mean, people swerve in and out of lanes, go way too fast. And I don't know whether it's a product of COVID or because we're been so cooped up or whatever it is, but there is a big problem, not just on Indian Head Highway, but on many, many of the highways in the state of Maryland. But Indian Head has been brought up over and over again. So I will definitely take a look at it. And if Jawan, you could also rally the folks that are intimately knowledgeable about what's been done and what perhaps could be done on top of it. I kind of like the idea of a clear message.
Absolutely.
You know, we've reached the point where, despite all of the instructions, there's still a lot of 100-mile-an-hour people out there.
Yes.
That's unacceptable.
Yes.
So I would be in favor of, I mean, I'm always in favor of incrementalism, I guess, but bring the hammer down. And I'm not in favor of taking away people's livelihoods by confiscating, by suspending their licenses, but I'm close to it with something like that because was 161 miles prior to takeoff or not?
Well, I tell you, it's, you know, wherever it was from beginning to end, it's just too much. You know, it just taxes the mind for any bit of safety that we could ever think. I'd like to bring up just one more point, if I may, real quickly.
And we are running out of time.
Okay.
Reverend Screen, so if
No,
you
Reverend,
will,
yeah, Reverend, we'll get together off screen.
Sounds good.
And we'll try to get the head of the state police and the new head of MDOT to focus on this as a test case, as
Okay.
you know, as something we're going to, if we have to, do something a little more dramatic.
Sounds good. Thank you.
and thank you. And can you, can the moderator, either Tanya or Esther, unmute Pat Monroe so that she can ask her question? Again, going back to the Pepco energy storage. And we are really close to the end, folks. So Pat, if you can be brief. I know Jawan is going to follow up with you afterwards. Can you unmute?
Yes, I just unmuted. Mr. Franchot, I just want to first of all say that most of the concerns of the residents are due to the safety. I live in Southlawn, where they're actually building this unit, which is off of Livingston Road, where they're building it. I'm less than 100 feet from where they're going to place this battery storage. And I need you to, there's an urgency to this because they've gone to MNC PPC for their filing. So we need to try and get in the room with the parties that be as soon as possible. So this thing can we can just try and.
Yeah, no, well, we'll get on it tomorrow or no,
Okay.
yeah, tomorrow is Friday. Okay, so, but I also, you know, I hesitate, I'm not sure of what your particular neighborhood is, but if they're doing this very close to residential areas, that needs to be looked at carefully.
Yes, there's a house that's 35 feet and I'm like 100 feet. And then it's daycares and schools all around.
Got it. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And no guarantees, I'm just a comptroller, but
I understand.
hey, you know, the problem here is that there are a lot of backroom decisions that are made.
I know.
And we need to kind of open the door and say, hello, you know, you can have your battery storage facility, but it's got to be sited safely. And it's
Yes.
got to be, you know, carefully regulated, because otherwise we could have a problem. Thank you. Good
Thank
point.
you.
We're close to the 45-minute limit. There were a couple of other questions that folks submitted. I'm just going to
Yeah, so, you know,
summarize them.
I can go for 5 minutes extra if there's
Oh,
some questions that people want to have. Don't feel too. I'm
All
gonna go
right,
down
well,
and
thank
I'm
you
gonna
for
go down
that.
and have my dinner after this, though. So
Okay.
don't take too long.
No. Some of the other questions that came in, what can be done about excessive trash along state roads and highways?
No, stop right there. Yeah, this is something that I'm particularly concerned with, because as I said, I get driven around the state a lot. I see the same dead deer on Route 50 for day after day after day. Somebody, not me, I'm the comptroller, but somebody needs to pick up the trash along state highways. It's gotten to be a big problem. And and the reason it's a big problem is because people lose confidence in state government if they see all of this, you know, debris where they travel. I'm just mentioning Route 50, not because that's just because that's the road I'm driven down, get to Annapolis. And whoever put that question in, I can't talk about the future at all, but I can say that if I ever am in a different position, I'm going to require all the trash along every state road to be picked up immediately. And we're going to mobilize the entire transportation sector in the state to clean up our state highways. And I'm very, very emphatic about that. And I know it sounds a little bit, you know, it sounds a little gimmicky. It's not a gimmick. I want people to say, if government can do that, gee, government can then do some other things, right? If they can actually pick up the trash along state roads. So get ready for that. If I'm successful down the road, you're going to see a big movement to do exactly that. And, you know, I'm also going to, while I'm out there, I'm going to fix the potholes. Why? Why? Because that would make people happy. And I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans or liberals or conservatives. I'm talking about everybody. We need to do that in order to move forward as a state. What else? What else is?
A couple of others. What about the development plans for South County, proposed business tax revenues that can offset property taxes? Youth county jobs programs related to workforce development opportunities for youth. What about environmental initiatives being proposed for the state that benefit us here in South County?
Can I just kind of summarize my view of the immediate future politically for South County? I mentioned former Senator Muse. I mentioned up and coming Ed Burrows. I mentioned the former councilwoman, Monique Anderson Walker. South County is going to have a lot of clout down the road. It's a very important part of a very important jurisdiction, Prince George's. Well, all I'm saying is that some of this up and coming political talent is going to change the dynamic. And so keep up the great work. All of the subjects that you raised can be addressed, and help is on the way, I think. Don't know if that helps you guys, but when I was with the Civic Association, nobody ever paid any attention to me. We're going to pay attention to you, and we're going to prove it to you that, you know, the progress you're making is great. I'm not suggesting you're not getting successes, but more can be done. And I'm very, very committed to that, just because of the people that I'm very, very close to who represent and will represent your area. That's why I'm on this call also. And that's why I gave you my cell phone number. And that's why I'm gonna, unless you have a specific, really important question, Zeno, I'm going to let everybody get back to their evening.
Yeah, one final comment. You feel free to address it if you would like, but it certainly is something that we want to keep on the table, and that's transportation, which you referenced a little earlier. For some time, many of our community leaders have worked to try to get Metro Rail right across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. Initially, WMATA had a plan to extend the yellow line across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, stopping at National Harbor and continuing on to its other lines. Now, there's a new plan that's been proffered by WMATA to extend the blue line across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, stopping at National Harbor, connecting with its blue line that goes through the district. Particularly given that National Harbor is an economic engine, not only for Prince George's County, but also for the state. It's also an employment hub. We need better transportation options than the bus routes that we have right now. And certainly getting that Metro Rail in, the blue line will stop at the airport, so it'll make it easier for travelers to get there too. Workers will have more transportation options, particularly given that there are infrastructure dollars that will be coming into the state. We think that this is an optimal time to try to get that project finally underway. And we would hope that your office, if I'll say when you are elected to a higher office, that we will have the weight of support from your office for getting that project finally done. We've been trying to get it done for more than 20 years now.
Well, stay tuned, because your ship's going to come in. I'm a huge champion of mass transit, because it's the only way we can really have a functioning economy. It has to be fast, reliable, frequent. And I was, for years, the chief champion of the Purple Line. We ran into some problems, and there have been some big budget and timing failures, not because of the state of Maryland, but because of the private sector and some of these lawsuits. But we're going to do the Red Line up in Baltimore. Probably going to be a monorail, because we need something really modern and futuristic for the city of Baltimore. But I was the subcommittee chairman on appropriations that funded the Woodrow Wilson Bridge with so-called Garvey bonds. We came up with that idea. And so I have a special interest in the Wilson Bridge, and the blue line I really like, because these lines get complicated, and if they're identified with their color, I can keep everything straight. But am I going to be for mass transit? Am I going to be for the blue line? Absolutely. And I will look with interest. I didn't realize the plan had been completed that WMATA was doing, but I will immediately ask Joanne if you can get a copy, and we can get brought up to date as far as what the data shows. I assume that they're talking about enormous economic potential if we could get.
I have the study. I'll go ahead and forward the link to Jawan.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and just remember, I'm the only one who really knows where all the money is. Because I collect it. I also work on the Board of Public Works to spend it. And we do the revenue estimates. So it's not a bad time to have someone like me on your side. And I've just enjoyed the evening very much. So make sure anyone who's got remaining questions, text me or voicemail me or contact Joanne. And Zeno, I want to thank you for being such a good and patient MC.
Well, thank you. We want to thank you, Comptroller Franchot, for taking some time to speak with us this evening. Joanne, thank you also for helping to set it up. All of the community leaders and residents all of you are leaders who are on this call. Thank you for your time. With that, we wish you well, and we'll say good night to everyone. Thanks so much.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.